Hi, my name's Adrian. Welcome to the Phonetics course. Today I'm going to go through a few of the fundamentals that you need to help you with the study questions and to give you a foundation for the rest of the course. The main point today is to show you the difference between sounds and letters, between what we say and what we write. And this is the reason that we will be looking at the International Phonetics Association alphabet on this course and the symbols you need to represent the English language. So to start, if we look at alphabets in general, the earliest writing systems tended to be logographic systems. What this means is that pictures or symbols were used to represent words. So hieroglyphics is perhaps what springs to mind when we think of a logographic system. So to represent a book, we might draw a picture of a book, or to represent a leg, we might draw a picture of a leg, and this is actually the Egyptian hieroglyphic for leg, a picture of a leg with a foot on the end. As hieroglyphics developed, this symbol actually also came to represent a single sound, the B sound. And representing single sounds is what alphabetic systems strive to do. So an alphabetic writing system, instead of using pictures or symbols, uses letters, and each letter should ideally correspond to a sound that we produce, and therefore if we read each individual letter we'll produce words as they're spoken. Some languages do this better or worse than others. So a logographic system, if we take Chinese for instance, which also uses symbols to represent words. This is the Chinese word leg, zu. Whereas in alphabetic systems, the German word for leg is Bein, in Finnish it's jalka. In English we say leg. And the idea here is one sound, one letter. The problem with English is that the language has developed and the writing system hasn't really developed to reflect that. So Finnish is often given as an example of a very phonetic language. If you read things as they're written on the page and you know the sound the letters make, your pronunciation will be pretty good. If we look at, so this is called a book in English, this is called a leg. If we look at these letters and sounds here, just as an example, so we have a B in book. The word det, however, this B makes no sound. If we take the K in night, makes no sound at all. And sometimes this K sound is represented by a C. The word carnivore is a K sound. So this one sound can be represented by different letters, but then the C is problematic in itself. It changes in the word city, for instance, or the word church. Together with an H, it makes a different sound. It can make an S sound. And even the vowels here, the in book. If we take another word, food, this double O now makes an oo sound. So English isn't brilliant when it comes to the correspondence between letters and sounds. And we can have cases where we have one sound is represented by different letters. The K can be a C or a K, or one letter can make several different sounds, like the case of the C here. So that's why we instead use IPA symbols, or the IPA alphabet, because then we have a reliable way of representing the sounds, or the phonemes. So perhaps the important point for today is sounds are not the same as letters. And in terms of sounds, what we're actually looking at on this course is phonemes to start with. And phonemes are sounds that in a given language are able to cause a word to change meaning. So for instance, if we take the word pet and we change the P to a B, then we've changed the word. So P and B are different phonemes. They're able to change a word. And the reason this is important is because we can have different ways of pronouncing, of realizing certain letters that don't represent a new phoneme. So for instance, in Swedish, this word, paw, depending on where you come from in Sweden, you might realize this word as pao, if you come from the very south, trying to do a bad sort of Skåne accent. But that different sound doesn't change the meaning of the word. It just tells us maybe something about where the person comes from. It's a pronunciation thing. So a phoneme is a sound that creates a new word, that changes the meaning of a word. And we often look at minimal pairs, we call them. So words where one phoneme changes and we create a new word. And that's all I really want you to take from this first introductory lecture, that what we're looking at is not letters, but we're looking at sounds. And so the idea originally with the alphabetic writing system was that sounds and letters are a one-to-one relationship, but that's definitely not the case in English. And so just a quick example which should help you with some of the study questions. If we look, for instance, at the word fox, we have 3 letters here, but the X actually makes a X sound, KS. So what we have is 1, 2, 3, 4 phonemes. Whereas these words here, they have 3 letters, 3 phonemes. But then also a phoneme in itself, so we've got pet, bet, leg here. This E sound doesn't always represent the same phoneme, so if we instead take the E in pretty, it's not the same E sound as the E in leg. Or if we look at the G here in night, for instance, it's not the same sound. So a letter is not always the same as a sound or a phoneme. And what we're looking at on this course, what the next lectures will look at, are the vowel phonemes and the consonant phonemes for English. Okay.